Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding Mishnah Berurah Chel Gimel, and Mir Hashem today we will be learning Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on the second line down from the top on Nun Aleph Amud Aleph, Siman Ayin Reish Vez Siftes. We are continuing to learn the halachas of what wines should be used for Kiddush. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanasunim Batzara Bashivya, Ha'imdim Ben Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Alehem Vayitziam Yitzar L'Rvacha, Me'afelu La'ira Mishiba L'Geula, Hashta Bagal of Zman Kariv and Emar Amen. Our learning should also be a schus for Yisrael Ben Rachel, Yonasan Ben Michal, and Yoel Ben Michal. Rabban Hashem should watch over them together with all of our other brothers and sisters that find themselves in harm's way. B'chol makom shehem. Okay, so we pick up here with Sif Test, second line down. Nun Aleph Amud Aleph says the Mechaber. B'makom she'en yayin motzui. If you're in a place where there is no wine to be found, and we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah precisely what that means. But whatever it is, you don't have wine. 30,000 feet. You don't have wine. B'makom she'en yayin motzui yesh omrim. There are those that say, this is primarily brought down from the Rush, b'makom she'en yayin motzui yesh omrim shemekachem al sheichar. There are those that say that you could make Kiddush Friday night on beer, ushar mashkin, or other types of beverages. We'll have to see what. Chutz min hamayim, with the exception of water. So that's what I hesitate to use the word Dei or Rishina, the first opinion here is Sif Test as opposed to a second opinion, because the second opinion is not going to disagree with the first opinion. But be that as it may, what the Mechaber says so far is, if you don't have wine, there are those that say you can make Kiddush on beer Friday night. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Chav Daled, Shemekachin al Sheichar, that you can make Kiddush on beer. And the Mishnah Berurah qualifies this a little bit. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Vedavka, this is only true, b'makom dehevi chamar medina, in a place where beer is considered a chamar medina. Now, chamar medina literally means it is a drink of the country, a drink of the province. I guess in proper English you would call it a provincial drink. I'll have to see what exactly that means. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Dahainu, what does this mean? She'ein yayin motzli b'chol ir b'shana hazu. There's a wine shortage going on, so people don't really have wine. And since they don't have wine, the drink that they use is sheichar, beer, or other beverages. Now, it doesn't mean that the only thing that they ever drank was wine. Now they don't have wine, so now the only thing that they drink is beer or some other beverage. What it means is that wine was the chosh of a beverage. If you wanted to drink a chosh of a beverage, you drank wine. They don't have wine. So now when they want to drink a chosh of a beverage, they drink beer, or they drink some other type of chosh of a beverage. So the Mechaber said that there are those that say you can make Kiddush Friday night on sheichar, on beer, or sha'ar mashkin, or other beverages, but they have to qualify as being chamar medina. And the first thing the Chavetz Chaim says, it means that they don't have wine. If they have wine, then the provincial drink, the chashuva drink, is wine. But if they don't have wine, so then they have to replace it with something. So they used beer or another beverage. Continues the Chavetz Chaim on that theme, and he says, V'in yesh sham yayin. What if they have wine? Elishu b'yoiker. But the wine is very expensive. Mikri motzui. That's called that you have wine. If you, in the presence of wine, it sounds like from this Mishnah Berurah, no other beverage is going to be elevated to the status of chamar medina. The default chamar medina is wine. The question is if wine is unavailable. If wine is unavailable, so they have to replace wine with something else. So then maybe they replace it with beer. Maybe they replace it with some other chosh of a beverage. But if you have wine, says the Chavetz Chaim, then no. If you have wine, even if wine is very expensive, that's called that wine is around. And if wine is around, that's the chamar medina, and that's what you need to make Kiddush on. Continues the Chavetz Chaim, and he says, how about a slightly different case? V'emein yein Yisrael motzui. If you don't have Yiddish wine available, aval pi sheyein Einam Yehuda Matzui, even though there might be Stam Yenam of a Eina Yehudi available, Loi Mikri Matzui al Yedei Zeh. that's not called that yayin is to be found. You don't have yayin that you could drink, so therefore yayin is not to be found, and then the status of Chamar Medina is going to go on to something else. What beverages did the Mechaber mention? He mentioned sheichar, beer, usha'ar mashkin, and other beverages. Says the Chavetz Chaim in Ois Katan Chaf Hei, usha'ar mashkin, v'cholav, milk, v'shemen, or oil, ein bichlal zeh. Those are not included in beverages that anybody would hold you could make kiddush on. D'ha'ena Chamar Medina, because milk and oil can never be Chamar Medina. De'ein regilan l'shtoisai lemashke. Chavetz Chaim says that milk was not something that you drank because you're thirsty. I want to drink. Nobody went to the refrigerator to get milk, to drink milk as a beverage. When did they drink milk? They gave milk to little kids, calcium, vitamin D, they wanted them to grow. They gave milk to people who needed milk for their health. But milk wasn't a stam beverage. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, it is not possible for milk to be called Chamar Medina, and that's true of oil as well. Now, if you notice, what the Mechaber said was, he said, Sheichar, beer, Usha'ar mashkin, or other beverages, Chutz min hamayim, with the exception of water. Now that sounds like, if you don't have wine, you could use any beverage with the exception of water. Now that would seem to include chalav, milk, and shemen, and oil. So how is it that the Chavetz Chaim is now saying that no, milk and oil could never be used because that's not considered a drink? What do you mean? The Mechaber said everything except water. It explains the Mishnah Berurah. You have to understand what the Mechaber meant. When the Mechaber wrote that all beverages are okay with the exception of water, he meant to say that water is in a category all of its own. What the Mechaber wanted to say is, let's say you live in a place where the only thing they drink is water. That is the drink. The drink is water. So now does water become Chamar Medina? Says the Chavetz Chaim, no. That's what the Mechaber meant. When the Mechaber said Chutz min hamayim, what he meant was water is in a category all of its own. Water could never be raised to the level of Chamar Medina and be usable for Kiddush. You'll never be able to call water Chamar Medina, even if that is the primary drink of the Medina. Yayin saraf, ayin likamei. And when it comes to the question of schnapps, we are going to discuss schnapps later on. Chutz min hamayim, ois katan chavav, says the Chavetz Chaim, ayin likabon b'siman reish tzadik vav sif beis. He sends us to siman reish tzadik vav sif beis, b'mashi kasavdu sham b'Mishnah Berurah, what the Mishnah Berurah said over there. Now that Mishnah Berurah is very pertinent. What that Mishnah Berurah says is, there's Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Yud on Daf Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph. The Chavetz Chaim writes, Afim roiv shtias haMedina hu min hamayim. Even if the primary drink in the Medina is water, it could never be considered Chamar Medina. You know why? Mishum deloi choshev. Because it's simply not choshev. Chamar Medina means it's a drink that has chashivus to it. Not stam that it's a drink that they drink. It was Pepsi or Coke. You're going to say it's Chamar. Everybody drinks Pepsi and Coke around here in this place where we are, over here in Chutz La'aretz. They all drink Pepsi and Coke. So does Pepsi and Coke become a Chamar Medina? No, Pepsi and Coke don't become a Chamar Medina because nobody considers Pepsi and Coke to be a choshev a beverage. It's not a choshev a beverage. It's when you sit down to eat a hot dog, you have a Coke or you have a Pepsi. But it's not a choshev a beverage. Chamar Medina has to be a choshev a beverage. Okay, going back now to the Shulchan Aruch, 3 lines down, in the middle of the line, right by the Ois Katan Chav Zayin for the Mishnah Berurah, says the Mechaber. So the Mechaber just told you that if you don't have wine available, there are those that say you can make Kiddush on beer or another beverage that's considered Chamar Medina. Now, says the Mechaber, Ula Harosh, but the opinion of the Rosh is that Balaylo lo yikadesh ala sheichar. Even though the Rosh holds that technically speaking, you can make Kiddush on beer Friday night in the absence of wine, because beer would be considered Chamar Medina, still the Rosh says it's not what you should do. In other words, when the Mechaber brings down the Rosh over here, the Rosh is not disagreeing with the first opinion presented by the Mechaber. The first opinion presented by the Mechaber was, in the absence of wine, you could use beer as Chamar Medina. Now, when the Mechaber brings down the Rosh is not disagreeing. He's saying, yes, technically, you could use beer in the absence of wine as Chamar Medina, but you should not do so. Instead, you should do something else. What should you do? Says the Mechaber Laharash, according to the Rosh B'Sechles Psachim, Balayla lo yikadish ala sheichar. Even in the absence of wine, Friday night, you should not turn to beer and use beer for Kiddush al Chamar Medina, el alapas. Instead, you should make Kiddush on the Challah. You should make Kiddush al pas. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Chav Zayin. Ula Harosh explains the Chavetz Chaim what I told you outside. Gama Rosh Svira Leika Yesh Oimrim Harishain. The Rosh does not disagree with the Yesh Oimrim that the Mechaber started off the Sif with. He also agrees that technically, yes, you could make Kiddush on beer Friday night as Chamar Medina if you do not have wine. Ella, but the Rosh holds, Kevan Shabbos Bal Tzorich Suda Shabbos. Since you're sitting down to a Suda, and by this Suda you have Lechem Mishnah, you have two Chalas over here that were brought to the table L'chvoid Suda Shabbos, Choshev Tvei Mishechar L'Kadish Bo B'Layla. That gives the Pas a higher level of Chashivos, and therefore, in the absence of wine, faced with the choice of making Kiddush ala pas that came l'chvoid Suda Shabbos, or making Kiddush on sheichar, beer, better, the Rosh says, make Kiddush al hapas. Uladina, and Allah Lamaisa says the Chavetz Chaim, Yesh lizar lechatchila shaloi lekadish balayla al shum mashke chutz min hayayin. The Chavetz Chaim says that Allah Lamaisa, you should be nizar, you should be careful not to make Kiddush Friday night on any other beverage other than wine. Oy pas, or make Kiddush ala pas, im ein yayin ba'ir, if there simply is no wine available in the city, ukidel kameh, like we're going to see a little bit later on. Why, says the Chavetz Chaim, why is he telling you this? The harbe gedolei rishonim, because the Chavetz Chaim says many of the gedolei rishonim, machmirin, ruled very stringently, she'ena yoytze b'zeh yedei Kiddush, that you're not yoytze Kiddush on beer. The Gama Mechaber lo yichriya b'zel halacha, and we don't find that the Mechaber was machriya. The Mechaber brought down this yesh oimrim, right? The first opinion, he quoted a yesh oimrim, then he brings down the Rosh, but he's not machriya. He doesn't rule either way. So says the Chavetz Chaim, Friday night, either make Kiddush on yayin or make Kiddush al hapas. Kiddush al hapas. When you make Kiddush al hapas, what do? You should place your hands on the pas ad gemara Kiddush until you finish making Kiddush. The reason why we want you to put your hands on the pas is the the same way when you make a normal Kiddush al yayin, you hold the kais. When you're making Kiddush al pas, you have to be holding the pas. Okay, so therefore, based on what we've said here, nope, we got to go weiter in the Mechaber. Says the Mechaber 3 lines up off the bottom, a little bit before the middle of the line. Uva boiker, when it comes to Kiddush of Shabbos day, says the Mechaber, toiv lekadish al hashechar. If you don't have wine to make Kiddush on Shabbos by day, we just finished discussing what do you do if you have no wine available for Friday night Kiddush. What if you have no wine available for Shabbos morning Kiddush? Then, says the Mechaber Uva Boiker, Yoser Tov Lekadish al Sheichar, it would be better to make Kiddush over the beer than to make Kiddush al Hapas. How would you do that? Sheyivarech alav shahakol koydem berkes hamaitzi. You bring the beer, you make a shahakol on the beer, that's your Kiddush. Maybe you'll say Kisheshes, maybe you'll say Kedusha Rabbah, Im Toshiv, maybe you'll say Vishamru, Zachar, but you'll make a shahakal on the beer before you wash and you eat the pas. That will be your Kiddush. It's better to do that Shabbos by day than to make Kiddush ala pas by day. Why? Explains the Mechaber why. Shem Yevarek ala pas tchila, because let's imagine that you don't make Kiddush on beer Shabbos by day. So what are you going to do? You're going to make Kiddush ala pas? Shem Yevarek ala pas tchila, if you make Kiddush on the pas, ein kan shum shinui. You don't see anything different here. In other words, by Friday night, we have a bracha of Kiddush. What's Friday night Kiddush? Bar Piagafen, Vayechulu, and then the bracha of Asher Kiddushaну b'mitzvayis avanu, the bracha of Kiddush. Now, let's say you make Kiddush ala pas Friday night. So, okay, you'll wash, you'll make hamoitzi, you'll say vayichulu, you'll make the bracha of Kiddush, and you'll be mekadesh ala pas. All right, even though now you're not going to have to get up and go wash because you already made your hamoitzi, but it's very obvious that you made Kiddush. You said the bracha of Asher Kiddushanim b'mitzvah savarat savanu. Now let's look at Shabbos Day Kiddush. Shabbos Day Kiddush doesn't have a bracha. Even what we add, we say, let's say Zachar, Vishamru, Akeberach, Kisheshes, Im Tashiv. There's no bracha there. Those are all minhagim to say psukim. Really, for Kiddush Shabbos by day, you just pick up a kais, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Bari Pri Hagafen. That's Kiddush. So now let's imagine you make Kiddush ala pas, Shabbos morning. What are you going to do? You're going to go to the sink, you're going to wash, you're going to come to the table, you're going to take the challah, Bereshus, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Amaytzi lechem and aretz, and you're going to eat challah. You know what it looks like? It looks like you skipped Kiddush. So therefore, says the Mechaber, don't do that. Instead, make Kiddush on beer. By making Kiddush on beer, what's going to happen is you're going to sit down by the table, you're going to take a cup of beer, you're going to say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shakal nir b'dvarei. That was Kiddush. Now you're going to get up, go wash, come back and make hamoitzi. So now you see that you made Kiddush. But if you make Kiddush ala pas Shabbos by day, just looks like you skipped Kiddush. Therefore, says the Mechaber, given the choice by day, if you don't have wine by day, do not make Kiddush ala pas, because then it just looks like you skipped Kiddush. Instead, make Kiddush on beer, so it's obvious that you have a Kiddush over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah test, Toiv lekadesh. By day, it would be better to make Kiddush on beer. Hainu. What the Mechaber means is, by Kiddush by day, hu yoyse toiv me ala pas. It's better to make Kiddush on the beer than on the pas, because of the reason that's given by the Mechaber. Aval yayin b'makom shu matzui, but certainly the Mechaber does not mean to say that the best way to make Kiddush by day is pas. No, if you have wine, yivarech alav afilu b'yom. Certainly the best way to make Kiddush by day is over wine. Ukidemuchach b'simin reish peites siv beis. Nevertheless, having said this, says the Chavetz Chaim, in our regions, meaning in the regions of the Chavetz Chaim, in the Chavetz Chaim's times, shahayayin b'yoker, when wine was very expensive, v'roiv shtiyas hamedina hu misha'ar mashkin, and most of the chashuv drinking that people did were from other types of beverages, lo'inagu afilu ha'gedolim and the haler achar yayin b'yoim, but even the gedolim in the time of the Chavetz Chaim were not mahader to make Kiddush on Yayin Shabbos by day. Kiddush hu rak b'derabanan l'kuli alma. Everybody agrees that the Kiddush by day is only a derabanan, and therefore they were not so machmir when wine was so expensive to make Kiddush al Yayin Shabbos by day. And they relied on the Kuladik opinion over here in Siftes that you could go make Kiddush on beer. However, somebody who does make Kiddush by day on wine, is certainly doing a mitzvah min hamuvchar. Ois katan lamid al hasheichar, you can make Kiddush on beer. V'im chavav la yayin saraf. Let's say somebody likes schnapps. If somebody likes schnapps more than beer, yachal lekadish alav bayom lechatchila b'medina seinu shu chamar medina. The Chavetz Chaim says that certainly in his days, schnapps was considered a chamar medina. It was something that everybody drank, and it was considered a chashuv a drink. So you want to make Kiddush on schnapps instead of making Kiddush on beer, go ahead. But now, says the Chavetz Chaim, his very, very famous opinion over here, and he brings this down in the name of achroinim. However, says the Chavetz Chaim, if you're going to make Kiddush on schnapps, sheyizar likach kais machzik revius, you should make sure to use a kais that can hold a revius. The Mishnah Berurah is saying, do not make Kiddush on a shot glass of schnapps. Make Kiddush on a kais that holds a revius, because for Kiddush, you need a kais that holds a revius. And then you have to make sure that you drink at least a malay lugmav, which is roiv of a revius. In other words, what the Chavetz Chaim is saying, remember, just because you're making Kiddush at schnapps, the halachas of Kiddush don't change. You still need a kais that holds a revius. You still need to drink a malay lugmav. Under pressing circumstances, where you cannot drink a malay lugmav of schnapps, and you don't have wine, and you don't have anything else to make Kiddush on. Afilu shtias kol hamasubin mitzarfen l'maloi lugmav ukadela el siman reish ayin aleph sif yod daled. We could rely on the Kuladik opinion that we saw in Siman reish ayin aleph that everybody who came to be yoitza with this Kiddush, all of their drinking combines to make up the maloi lugmav that you need to drink from the kais of Kiddush. So if this guy has a shot, and this guy has a shot, and this guy has a shot, and this guy has a shot, that's already a lot more than a maloi lugmav. So it could all combine. Ule'inyan meidvash u'sha'ar mashkim, when it comes to honey mead or other kinds of beverages, ayin b'mashik asavdu l'kabon b'siman reish tzadik vav b'Mishnah Berurah siv katan tes. We will discuss that further along. Now, most people are aware there's a dissenting opinion that the Mishnah Berurah does not bring down over here that holds that you could make Kiddush even on a shot glass. You could make Kiddush on a very, very small amount of schnapps. You don't need a revius in the kais. That is an opinion that's attributed both to the Taz and to somebody else who's not coming to my mind right now. It's based on a Taz by the halachas of bracha achrona, who holds that you can make a bracha achrona on a very, very small, you make a bar nefashos on even less than a maloi lugmav of schnapps, because it's not the derech to drink a maloi lugmav of schnapps. The derech of schnapps is to drink very little, maybe a shot is considered the derech to drink. Since that's the derech, that's the way that beverage is consumed, therefore you could make a bar nefashos even on less than the usual shear. So too, they extrapolate from this Taz that by Kiddush also, since nobody drinks a kais, nobody takes a kais that's maxik or revius for schnapps, right? You take a shot glass, maybe a double shot glass. That's what you take for schnapps. You don't take a revius, and you don't drink a maloi lugmav. Therefore, those opinions hold that you could make Kiddush on less than the shear, but this is a Mishnah Berurah shear, and that is certainly not the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah. He doesn't even bring it down. The Mechaber said, if you're going to make Kiddush on beer, so you're going to make a shahakal. Says the Mishnah Berurah's cut lamad al shahakal, ubezaya bracha shu moisiv kaidam asuda, by making this shahakal over the cup of beer before you go wash and eat your challah, hu heker shu l'chvayt HaShabbos. That's where you see that Kiddush was made. Now, let's contrast that to making Kiddush ala pas Shabbos by day. Ain't kan heker klal. You don't see Kiddush at all. You don't say a whole nusach of Kiddush Shabbos by day. So what are people going to see? They're going to see you went to the sink, you washed, you came, you took lechem mishnah, you made a mitzi. Where was Kiddush? It looks like you skipped Kiddush. Ice cotton. No, we didn't do that yet. Let's see the Ramah. Says the Ramah, Hagah, V'cheina minig pashut kedivrei harash. The simple minig is to follow the opinion of the Rush that Friday night Kiddush, in the absence of wine, it is better to make Kiddush al hapas. V'miyayin ba'ir, but if there is wine available in the city, lo yikadesh al hapas, you should not make Kiddush al hapas. Says the Mishnah Berurah's cut lamed beis, lo yikadesh al hapas, do not make Kiddush al hapas if wine is available. Why, says the Mishnah Berurah? That's because we must concern ourselves with the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, Shasover, who holds the Ein Mekachet al Hapas klal, that you could never make Kiddush al Hapas. Rabbeinu Tam was not maskim to Kiddush al Hapas. So since we have a sheet of one of the Choshev, Rishonim, all the Rishonim are Choshev, but from the Iker Rishonim, Rabbeinu Tam, Shitas Rabbeinu Tam, that you cannot make Kiddush al Hapas, therefore, we don't want to make Kiddush al Hapas Friday night unless there's nothing else to do, unless we mamish don't have wine. Vedad, you should know, even according to the Rosh and the other Paiskim, the Naktinan Kavasayu, who we really paskin like Halach Lamaisa, the Mutter Lekalish al Hapas, who hold that you can make Kiddush al Hapas, they also agree that you shouldn't make Kiddush al Hapas if wine is available, so Rabbeinu Tam holds you can never make Kiddush al Hapas. But even the other Rishonim who hold that you can make Kiddush al Hapas, they only say that when wine is unavailable. But if wine is available, certainly they agree that you should make Kiddush ala yayin. The Iker mitzvah hu ala yayin. Ach delidid hu. But according to those Rishonim, imapas chaviv la yoser miyayin. Somebody really doesn't like wine, and he loves a good fresh everything challah. Oz mutar lekadish ala pas afilu yesh la yayin. Those Rishonim would hold no. Since we hold that you could make Kiddush ala pas, and for you pas is more chaviv than yayin, So maybe that would give you a push that you should make it a lapas. V'chein pasak b'derech hachayim. V'efshir shal zeh soimchid ha'olam lahakal b'zeh. And the Chavetz Chaim says maybe it's because of this that we find that the world is noyeg a little bit lakula, and when they're in the mood of making kiddush al lapas, they make kiddush al lapas even b'makam sheyesh lahem yayin. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshua's refuahs parnassah sheduchim to all those in need, and we should be zoichet to see the bias koyel tzedek b'meher v'yameinu. Amen. Be well.